Mr. Chairman, we are streaming live and recording on YouTube. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Rachel. All right. Good morning and welcome to this Metro Plan Orlando TAC meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'm Chairman Joshua DeVries and will be chairing the meeting today. Just as a reminder, since this meeting and our future meetings will be in person, it's important for all TAC members to attend our meetings in person in order to give us a quorum. Members of the public will still be able to participate virtually, and we encourage them to do that. There are two public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public attending in person who want to speak need to fill out a comment card and give it to Rachel. Those attending virtually who want to speak will use the raise hand feature on the Zoom screen. If attending by phone, you can hit the *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you're called, your microphone will be temporarily unmuted by staff and will ask you to state your name and contact information for the record. We also accepted comments by email before this meeting. Also, as a reminder, please silence your cell phone. And now I'll turn the meeting over to Slade for agenda review.
All right, thank you. Good morning again, everyone. No changes to the printed agenda today, but wanted to call your attention to the updated link under the tip action item. The download link has been updated from the original agenda that you received a week ago. A few announcements. On June 4th, we had a successful webinar with traffic safety Melissa Wandal. For those who couldn't attend, I recommend watching the recording on our YouTube channel. Likewise, the video from the Bike Walk Central Florida Wheel of Achievement Awards which was on June 13th, featuring Blue Zone's researcher Dan Burden, is also available there on our YouTube channel. You can find those as well as other safety videos under the Vision Zero Central Florida playlist on the YouTube channel. So the Vision Zero Safety Speaker Series will be back soon, most likely with a panel to discuss speed reduction and safety. On June 18th, we had a virtual public meeting on the Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP. And thank you to everyone in the room who attended that, as well as everyone in the public who participated. That video is also on our YouTube channel if anyone wants to go back and watch that. Also, wanted to draw your attention in the general information items portion of the packet. We talked about the artificial intelligence capability maturity model flyer, AI CMM flyer. That was actually not published, but we do have some information in there for you, as well as information on an event that they'll be holding, AI CMM workshop, which will be at the Regional Transportation Management Center on August 1st at 10 a.m. We'll be sure to get more information out to you once we receive it. And two quick housekeeping notes. Our office will be closed on July 4th for Independence Day, and our next board meeting on July 10th will begin at 8 a.m. instead of its normal time to accommodate some other local government meetings. Now, I'll turn it back to the chair for the rest of the announcements.
Safety moment?
Yeah. Oh, that's under my part of the script, isn't it? Never mind. Normally, Mike Wilson is our safety moment guy, but today Alex will be taking over as he's at a conference.
Yeah, pinch hitting for Mike today, so bear with me. But again, safety moment, as I mentioned earlier, kind of praising who heard this earlier. But again, safety moment and Vision Zero status update have been on your agendas for the past 12 plus months now. It's going to be a twofer this morning to kind of save time on agenda, but also kind of keep some stuff critical items on your radar. So again, you've heard a lot about the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan at your committee meetings over the past year or so. A lot of that information, supplemental appendices are already up and available and have been somewhat encapsulated in each of your local plans. So I want to kind of take that time now and say thank you to kind of each of our local Vision Zero project managers for kind of keeping things moving, as well as our consultants who I know have been kind of doing a lot of the heavy lifting to keep things on track. So again, we do appreciate y'all's commitment to kind of seeing this through. But again, we're at that time with the regional plan that we have, we're coming to that tangible document, an actual action plan that we're going to be sharing with committees and everyone real soon. So that's what I'm going to really be talking about briefly today. Again, the situation at hand, Mike's presented on this at past meetings. 41% of our deaths happens on just 2% of our region's high injury network. Very concerning. We also looked at, as part of the behavioral analysis, looking at, almost half of those traffic fatalities have some type of behavioral reckless or kind of careless aspect to the crash. So something for us to keep in mind as we're advancing our next steps. It's going to be a data-centric, targeted approach, and you're going to see a lot of that emphasis in the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan, solving for the issues, but also kind of leading in the right directions. So a lot of that focus is on, again, continued planning and analytics. Let's kind of take MetroPlan taking a role in that, but also acknowledging there's a pretty a big behavioral change component of this, something that we in partnership with DOT and others will be focusing on over the next few years. But also a reality that there are some smaller build, quicker build projects that are available to us. Not everything has to be the transformational reconstruction. That is our end in mind. We don't want to lose sight on the target. But again, recognition that there are shorter term, quicker build countermeasures that we can get right to, both at the regional level, but also in each of your jurisdictions. So something to keep your focus on. And again, I know you've seen elements of it in long form and technical format, but by July 11th, we will be releasing the Vision Zero Action Plan. That's that summary document, which kind of includes a focus of our countermeasures and kind of what MetroPlan Orlando is going to be doing over the next 1 to 3 years in implementation of that strategic document. We're going to give our committees time to review that. So you're going to hear more from Slade, or you'll receive feedback from Slade, Eric, if you're on Tismo, but also from our other media channels to make sure you have access to that document and plenty of time to review. Our hope is you'll be able to take action on that at your next meeting, which is in August later this year. Again, a lot of the information is already available on visionzerocfl.gov, our regional hub site. But we'll let you know when that final or draft, Regional Vision Zero Action Plan is ready for your review. So while you're reviewing that, we are going to be pursuing additional resources in the form of another SS4A, Safe Roads and Streets for All supplemental planning grant application. Similar last time, MetroPlan Orlando is going to attempt to take the lead on this, but are welcoming our partners to contribute if interested. Especially in that roadway safety audit task. I know Mike presented this at the last committee cycle. This is kind of the core elements of the supplemental planning grant. We're going to, again, continue that safety focused public participation through a couple different channels. We know we need to dig deeper into the data. There's correlations there that we really believe can help us better solve, both on the transportation side, but also on the land use side, to support our local government partners in that decision making back home. And then that number 3, like I said, I think this is where, we have boots on that. We need to kind of get boots on the ground. I think that's what I mentioned earlier this morning. We've done a lot of desktop analysis. We've identified high injury network. We've dug into the data, but now we really need to kind of solve for that on corridor and do the necessary technical planning work to advance the solutions into design and construction. So we're going to be focusing some effort there using resources MetroPlan Orlando already has on our adopted UPWP, kind of rub the nickels together to do more work, good work throughout the region. And then we'll come back and incorporate that as required through the supplemental planning process into our regional plan. But again, that application is due by August 29th. You will be hearing from my team in early July, starting to send out some of those letters of support, whether that's financially, or just saying, hey, you know, I support what Metro Plan Orlando is doing and this is in the right direction. So if you are interested in contributing, again, it's non-committal, but if you're interested in kind of fully leveraging the supplemental planning grant opportunity, please reach out directly to me and we can have those discussions. If not, we'll be in touch about how we'll be administering the grant, successful or not. But again, final grant is due August 29th. The way they're administering the grant program this time, it's a rolling application. So we do want to, while the application is due on the 29th, we're trying to submit well in advance of that to make sure that funds don't dry up before we apply. So that's our target, and we're hopeful that we'll see success, and we'll be reporting more on that as things come to fruition. But any questions, I'll do my best to field them. If not, be on the lookout for more information from my team. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Alex, for that safety moment. And thank you very much for your team and supporting this Vision Zero process and pursuing the additional resources. Next, we have item 4, agency reports. This is an opportunity for any of our other partner agencies to speak to the committee. If any partners wish to provide updates during this slot, please let Rachel and Slade know via email at least 1 week prior to the TAC meeting. Today, we have Amy Beckman for our regular report from FDOT.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. The report will look a little different today. Some of you were here earlier, so I apologize. I'll try to jazz it up just a little bit for you. But we are here to talk about our 2055 Florida Transportation Plan. You've heard the Metro Plan Orlando has their MTP. We now have, of course, our Florida Transportation Plan. This update is a comprehensive statewide blueprint that's going to cover the next 30 years of Florida's transportation future, and it lays the groundwork for our work program investments. It's updated every 5 years, and the plan is going to be developed through a steering committee, guidance, focus group support, and comprehensive community engagement, both in the public and private sector. The plan update is going to take place over the next 18 months or so, and it should be adopted then in November of 2025, so just a month earlier than Metro Plan. This 2025 FTP will be guided, as I said, by the guidance of a streamlined steering committee in collaboration with FDOT, and they're going to be providing input into the development of the goals, objectives, and policies that make up the plan. Commissioner and Metro Plan Board member Maya Uribe is actually on the steering committee, so she is a good resource for you in order to have a direct route up the chain. The Florida Transportation Plan is more than just a plan. Of course, it's a forum that connects communities, policies, and programs across the state. It is a collaborative effort of state, regional, and local transportation partners in both public and private sectors. In the development of our 2055 FTP, we have divided Florida into 5 regions to better understand the needs of our diverse communities and tailor the characteristics and needs of each region. This also helps to provide a framework so at a local level so that we have a better cohesion of strategies across municipalities as well as jurisdictional boundaries. As you can see up on the screen, we have 3 stages or phases of the development of the FTP. Visioning, which is just coming to an end next, I guess a little more than next month. So in August of 2024, then we have statewide goals and regional objectives, and then finally the implementation framework and plan development. There will be a public commentary period in September and October of 2025 with an adoption in November of 2025. So at FDOT, communities are at the center of everything we do, and we'll be holding multiple engagement opportunities throughout the FTP update through statewide webinars as well as regional workshops. And one of the best opportunities for this group or any of your colleagues who may be interested in is to participate in our focus groups. There will be focus groups, 5 different ones centered around the different aspects or different topic areas of our FDOT compass: safety, economic development, supply chain, resilient infrastructure, technology, and workforce development. Just to let you know, those focus groups are going to meet every few months. They're virtual. They do require pre-registration. The first round is coming up very quickly, so I apologize, just the way it fell. The first one for safety is on July 9th. at 9 a.m. And I have emailed Mr. Downs the list of these dates and times, so he can send that out to you as well. Economic Development and Supply Chain is on the 10th at 2. Resilient Infrastructure is going to meet on the 11th at 2. Technology is on the 18th of July at 2 p.m. And Workforce Development will be taking place on July 23rd at 9 a.m. Again, those require pre-registration, but they are virtual, and it is your good opportunity for you to contribute and give your commentary. The second round of meetings will be taking place later in October. This is our overall timeline for the adoption and the implementation of our 2055 FTP. You can see the different timelines there with, as I said, the public commentary period will take place in September and October of 2025 with a final adoption in November of 2025. So we are asking you to help us to develop our 2055 Florida Transportation Plan. You can visit floridaftp.com in order to learn more about how you can get involved, leave commentary, search out a regional webinar or workshop, or participate in the focus groups. You should have cards at your seats that have a QR code. It looks very similar to what's on the screen. You can take with you in order to visit Florida FTP and register, or just look at, we can get you extra copies as well if you have colleagues that are interested. With that, I conclude, and thank you very much for your time. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to hear them.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for that update. Are there any questions? I see none. Thank you very much. Appreciate your update. Next we'll have roll call. Rachel.
Thank you. I'll ask all committee members to please keep microphones off until called. Say here or present, then mute your microphone again. Barden.
Here.
Brock. Carson. Alasar.
Present.
Castellero. Thank you. Castro.
Here.
Chester. Cologne.
Here.
Cornelison.
Here.
Crandell.
Here.
Delachey.
Here.
DeVries.
Here.
Eid.
Present.
Elliot Moore.
Present.
Hamza. Hardwick. Hartley.
Here.
Kamal. Lim.
Here.
Patel for Mendenhall. O'Keefe.
Here.
Parker. Price. Pullum.
Here.
Recce.
Here.
Athanas for Robinson.
Here.
Roll.
Present.
Sanders.
Here.
Senerans.
Here.
Smith.
Present.
Story.
Here.
Ramos for Sudemeyer.
Here.
Wharton.
Here.
Martello for Williams. Yeargain.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the roll call. We do have a quorum.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. We have one common presentation, which we'll hear now. Please stand your nameplates on end to signal that you wish to ask a question, and we'll recognize you at the end. When speaking, please press the red button on the screen to turn on your microphone. We have Taylor Laurent with MetroPlan Orlando with a status update on the 2050 MTP.
Okay, good morning, everyone. To start off with the MTP, I wanted to give a high-level overview of where we are and where we stand today. So as of right now, we're about a quarter of the way into the development of our 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or the Long-Range Plan, with several ongoing efforts kind of getting close to completion with our goals, objectives, and indicators, as well as our drivers of change, those future trends. But as those are coming to a conclusion, our multimodal needs assessments are kicking into high gear, and you'll hear more about those in just a few minutes. But we are on track to be able to adopt the MTP in December of 2025. So getting into those specifics, the public participation plan is completed. Thank you for providing the information on those yellow forms that Marianne shared a few meetings ago to help us build out our contact list so we can share the message of the transportation vision that we're trying to build collaboratively with the public. So thank you for that. In terms of our existing conditions and area profile technical report, that is complete and also available online. Then for our goals and objectives, those statements were revised based on the feedback that we received from the advisory committee meeting process last go around. So we'll be looking over the final versions of that language today, even as we talk about the proposed indicators or the measures that we'll use to be able to evaluate our progress to achieve those goals and objectives. So that's a handout that you have with you, and we'll kind of revisit that towards the latter end of the presentation. So I've mentioned those drivers of change. As part of your agenda packets, we did include a link to be able to look at the draft chapter of the drivers of change. So you can explore the in-depth evaluations of the trends which could influence how we plan transportation for 2050. These factors will be included throughout the rest of the MTP to be able to assist with our policy and investment decision-making as we move forward with the development of the long-range plan. A few other technical updates. We have continued our coordination with the Central Florida Regional Planning Model, FDOT's team, regarding their socioeconomic data. We submitted some comments which were included as part of your agenda packets last meeting. And we're continuing our coordination to make sure that those comments are addressed and the socioeconomic data is updated for the use in the model itself. Our transit vision plan for the region is nearing completion, and there will be a link to that in your next agendas for the August cycle. And then in terms of freight planning, that assessment is kicking off, and we will be having some industry and public agency workshops within the next few weeks. So more information about that will be shared as it comes through. Then in terms of a few other ongoing efforts, I don't have time to get into those today, but want to make sure that you know that they're on the horizon. You heard from Alex about our safety and Vision Zero action planning efforts. As that comes to a conclusion, it will be incorporated directly into the 2050 MTP. And we also have evaluations for health, housing, and a few environmental evaluations going on as well. And as those get a little more evolved, there's a little more tangible items, I'll be presenting more detailed updates on those to you as well. And then I'm always excited about these last two. We've also likely talked about these, but I'm excited, so we're going to talk about them again. The TSMO and active transportation needs assessments are completed and have been incorporated into the 2050 MTP, which I'm very excited about. So I mention those two, not just due to my excitement, but also because we're reaching a key milestone for our state highway system needs assessment. So we have been looking at the 2045 MTP needs list for the state highway system for the past several months and kind of refreshing that, making sure that the items that were listed there are still needed for 2050. And we've also been doing some interim 2050 traffic forecast estimates to help us identify if there's any new potential needs that we need to discuss. So as I talk about discussion, you're going to be seeing an email from me in the very near future. Looking to schedule a meeting with your staff to make sure that we have time to look over that draft state highway system needs list and kind of refine and develop that before we officially move it forward in the 2050 MTP. So more information will be coming on that fairly soon. Then the next question I usually get after talking about needs assessment is where's the money? So in terms of our financial resources and revenue forecasting, that element of the MTP is also underway. As a reminder, our MTP does need to be fiscally constrained. So we're looking at identifying the financial resources that may be available to fund transportation improvements. And that includes looking at federal, state, local, private, discretionary, any type of funding that we could allocate to transportation improvements over this 25-year planning horizon. So as this also gets a little more developed, a little more tangible, there will be more information presented to you at future advisory committee meetings, but also at the technical workshops as well. And our most recent technical workshop was just a few weeks ago on June 13th. For those who were able to attend, thank you. For those who couldn't, the recording is available on our YouTube channel right now. We're able to provide a more detailed overview of the preliminary transit vision element results, as well as the freight planning approach that's being implemented over the next several months. And then the refinement of indicators is actually what we're going to talk about today, so I won't belabor that point. So as we look at indicators, these are intended to be the data points to measure progress towards achieving our goals and objectives. These are not meant to be strategies. That will be our next step. The strategies will be our approach to achieving those goals, objectives, and how we measure our progress will be the indicators. Our MTP goals, we have talked about at length in previous meetings. We have 5 key goal areas. And that language has been updated. You'll see those in big font on the next couple slides as we refine the indicators themselves. There were several questions submitted to us over the past several weeks asking how these goals would be evaluated, and that's where those indicators are coming into play today. So we've also spoken before about how our goals are interconnected. You saw that getting a little more detailed during the objectives development, and you'll see those interconnected connections coming through even more as we talk through indicators today. For each of the indicators on your handout, and I recommend that you kind of read along as we go, you'll see that every indicator, if it supports more than one goal area, will have a check mark next to each area in which we think that that applies. It's only listed in one location in the report, but it is acknowledged that it's being able to provide a measure to help us evaluate the success in several areas as we develop our shared regional vision for transportation. So in terms of our indicators, these were purposefully curated to make sure that they're measurable and indicative of the future of transportation within our area. So we wanted to, some of those are tied to federal performance measures, which are also indicated in your handout. Some of these will potentially be used for prioritization criteria down the line, or for annual reporting through our Tracking the Trends program, or signposts for how we're getting ready for future trends as we move forward. So with these indicators, they are intended to be specific and measurable. We want to make sure that the data that's used to evaluate these is available on a regular basis and reliably available as well, and understandable to the general public. So from here, starting with our first goal area of safety, providing a safe and secure transportation system for all users, there are 5 indicators that are proposed for this category. Again, you'll see more with the safety box checked. I've got 5 under this in the report. This begins with the number and rate of fatalities, serious injuries, and crashes being evaluated from multiple different perspectives, looking at average clearance times for incidents, as well as average emergency response and notification times by incident occurrence. Going into reliability, to provide a reliable transportation system across all modes for people and freight. There are 7 indicators proposed for this area, including a range of items, looking at metrics on the infrastructure condition, level of travel time reliability from multiple perspectives and lenses, and then looking at transit conditions as well. In terms of connectivity, enhancing lives through improved access to jobs and services for people of all ages and abilities. We have 6 proposed indicators that look at transit operations, the percent of jobs and essential services accessible via different modes of travel, as well as average person trip distance. For community, enhancing the health and vitality of our region's communities and environments, we've proposed 7 indicators looking at the miles of active transportation facilities that have been constructed, the rates of asthma, obesity, and diabetes throughout the region, as well as looking at emissions, similar to the air quality reports that you received today. Then we did receive a question prior to this meeting, so I want to clarify that for everyone. The indicator that you see of miles of publicly owned and maintained transportation infrastructure within wetlands or 100-year floodplain, that's intended to track the encroachment of any public infrastructure into the wetland or floodplain areas. I'm going to make sure that one's clear for everybody. And then our 5th goal area is prosperity, strengthening our region's economy. There are 7 indicators proposed here as well, looking at freight values by mode, access to jobs, affordable housing units per capita, as well as transportation and housing costs as a percentage of household income. I know that there's a lot of indicators to process on your handout. Those were also included in your agenda packets. And we do have time for questions to discuss these today. But just in case we run out of time or you get some ideas after the meeting, you can always reach out to Slade or myself to share your thoughts. But we've also opened up a indicators survey, which was also linked in your agenda packets, so you can provide your feedback. We ask that you submit any thoughts, questions, to us by July 12th, so 2 weeks from today. So with that, thank you very much for your time this morning. Does anyone have any questions?
Ms. Laura?
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I'll probably give this a deeper dive and submit to the survey. But I wanted a chance to discuss the percent commuting by mode and if there were any discussion of broadening that rather than just commuting. I think when we've really dove into some of our exposure and dangerous by design, that's something that comes up a lot, is that people may not be able to get to and from work with active modes, but they do take other trips by active mode. So I was wondering if there's a way we can capture that we have multimodal travel, just not necessarily always for commutes.
That's definitely a topic we can explore. At the moment, we're suggesting using the American Community Survey data to assist with that commute by mode tracking regularly, but we can talk through if there's any ideas of reliable data sources that we could use for that.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Taylor, for your presentation. All right, move on to public comments and action items. We'll now hear public comments on the action items as we ask that you provide your name and address for the record, and please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. If any members of the public wish to comment and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll send you a prompt to unmute your mic. Do we have anyone that's joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any hands raised on the virtual side.
Right, and do we have any members of the public attending in person that wish to make a comment?
Mr. Chair, we've received no comment.
And are there any written comments that are submitted before the meeting?
We received none.
Thank you. So then we'll move on to action items. Today's action items include recommendations for the TIP and PPL. Those documents are linked in your agenda packets, and the PDFs are also loaded onto these screens in front of you if you wish, if you would like to take a look at the final drafts for adoption. Our first item is approval of the May 31st, 2024 TAC meeting minutes, which are located in tab 2 of your agenda packets. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Shad Smith, I move to approve the minutes.
Second sentiments.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right. Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, motion passed unanimously. Our next action item is recommendation to the board for adoption of the fiscal years 25 through 29 TIP. Taylor Laurent from Metroplan Orlando can tell us more about that, and you can find more information in tab 3.
So good morning. For those who already heard this presentation, you know Jason Sartorio is traveling, and I'll be kind of the second substitution of the day to provide an update on the 2025 to 2029 Transportation Improvement Program that is on your agenda for action today. So a little bit of background, the purpose of the TIP is really to identify all of the federal and state funded transportation projects throughout the region for the next 5 years. This does include locally funded as well as Central Florida Expressway Authority projects for informational purposes. And it's updated annually consistent with our adopted prioritized project list from July of 2023. There are 11 sections within the TIP and 513 projects sorted within all of these different areas. There were no changes to the different TIP section categories as from the presentation that Jason provided at your previous meeting. In terms of funding, we have 280 federal, state, and turnpike funded projects within this TIP, which represents $5.4 billion worth of funding over the next 5 years. This does not include Central Florida Expressway projects, which represents $4.1 billion of additional investment in transportation within our region. And this also does not include the $1 billion in locally funded projects that are also being performed over the next 5 years. The pie chart here on the screen breaks out the funding by those 11 sections within the TIP. Again, no changes from the prior preview presentation last month. Then in terms of our MPO funded projects, there are 59 within the tip before you today, totaling $185 million worth of funding over the next 5 years. These projects generally fall into the categories of complete streets, TISMO, bicycle and pedestrian, as well as transit. Now, there were a few small changes between the draft tip that you saw a few weeks ago and the final tip that's being presented today. The first change was at the request of FDOT to add the date of our next federal certification onto page 14. The second was at the request of the City of Orlando to update the length of the Corinne Drive project to better match the work that's going to be performed. Then the next 3 updates were requests by Osceola County, the first being to Old Lake Wilson Road, adjusting the mileage of that project as well. The second being Jones Road, updating the future funding that's anticipated to be allocated to that project, again, locally funded, making sure that that's consistent across the region. And then the Lake Toho Pond Trail project, that was updating the historic funding amount to better represent the funding that's already been applied to that particular project. Then we've also improved the line work on our TIP online viewer for a few projects to better visualize them for the public. And then thank you, Slade, for already mentioning our TIP public meeting. That was a very successful event that we had on June 18th from 11:30 to 1 that was hosted virtually on Zoom, and a recording is available for you to view at your leisure. This year we did change up the formatting a little bit. We had Keith Slater from FDOT present on the I-4 and Moving Florida Forward projects, Miss Amy Beckman to present on the State Highways System projects, and Miles O'Keefe to assist with presenting the Links projects as well. So the public meeting was followed by a very engaging Q&A session, which included questions about transit in the region, safe routes to school, use of roundabouts, pedestrian safety questions, as well as some project-specific questions too. And then we did receive a few positive comments on the TIP online viewer from both the public and some of our agency partners. So it's good to see that that new item we've debuted this year is being well received. I do want to mention that the public comment period for the TIP is still open. So any comments that are going to be submitted, we do ask that those are sent in by July 8th. But unless you have any questions, we are asking for your recommendation of approval of the fiscal year 2025 to 2029 Transportation Improvement Program as it's been presented today.
All right, thank you, Taylor. Do you have a motion to approve the adoption of the tip?
Hartley recommend approval.
We have a motion. Do you have a second?
Chad Smith, second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right. Hearing none. This is a voice vote. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign? All right. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Taylor. Our next action item is a recommendation to the board for adoption of the 2030 to 2040 PPL. Slade Downs from Metroplan Orlando can tell us more about that, and you can find more information in tab 4.
Right, thank you. Morning again. Like Chair just said, I'll be walking you through our annual PPL update at our last meeting. Give you the preview of that, give you an opportunity to give some feedback to us, and now I'll be giving you a quick run through of the final version for adoption today. Again, the PDF for the document is on your screens in front of you if you'd like to take a look. So won't spend too much time on background because I don't want to repeat a whole lot of last month's presentation, but long and short of it is that the MTP is where we've established need and we pull projects into the PPL as kind of an on-deck circle for any projects that are looking for funding. Once those projects and project phases get funding allocated, then they move into the TIP, which Taylor just spoke on. So again, we requested feedback from not just all of you, but as well our other committees, our other advisory committees and the public. Thank you again to everyone who weighed in during that process. Based on that feedback, we were able to incorporate some changes. There were some changes in project phasing to a few projects on our complete streets list to more accurately reflect the needs of some of our municipal partners. We had some administrative adjustments to our off-system construction assistance list to reflect some changes in project limits and figures, and then some administrative adjustments on the regional transit projects list. One other thing I wanted to touch on is that because need and prioritization is laid out in the MTP, none of the project rankings changed as part of that feedback. So just wanted to let you know about that. And that is about the whole of it. I mean, it was very, very quick today. And I'll be asking for your approval of the 2030, 2040 PPL as presented, and be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Slade. I do have a motion to recommend the adoption of the 2030 to 2040 PPL.
Chad Smith, I move to approve as presented.
Second sentence.
All right. Sorry, we had that little battle there. Sounds like we've got a motion and a second. And so is there any discussion? All right. Hearing none. This is a voice vote. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Slade. All right. Next, we'll move into TAC only presentations. There's only one TAC only presentation today. And with that presentation, we'll have Laura Bach with Metro Plan Orlando with a status update on the congestion management process.
Thank you, Josh. Good morning, everybody. For those of you who already saw this presentation at TISMO committee, I won't be offended if you start a little mental lunch planning. For everyone else, if you could lock in for 10 minutes or so, I promise to get you out of here in a timely manner. As our chair noted, I'm here today to provide an overview of the work we've been doing the last few months on updating our congestion management process. Wanted to start with a little table setting, remind everyone that when we're talking about congestion management, we're thinking through the application of strategies to try and optimize the performance and reliability on our system, and that we think about two broad types of congestion. First, that recurring congestion that you can expect sort of in the same times and places on the system every day or every weekday, generally caused by high traffic volumes on our roads that are at or above capacity. And then we have our non-recurring congestion that's unexpected, atypical, and may be caused by things like traffic crashes, construction, special events. Thinking through what we're talking about with our congestion management process, that's really just a systematic way of planning for congestion management that is objectives based and performance driven, with the real intent there being that when we're thinking about how we're making investments related to congestion management, that we're really focusing on the outcomes that we would like to see in that space. I will note that many of the strategies that come out of a congestion management process tend to be TISMO strategies. Congestion management first showed up in legislation in 1991 with that Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act that introduced the idea of a congestion management system. In 2005, with the safety legislation that replaced the congestion management system with a congestion management process, with the main difference there being that a CMS or congestion management system was seen as a sort of point in time snapshot of what the system looked like from a congestion management perspective, whereas a CMP or congestion management process is a living document that's updated regularly to take into account changing goals and objectives for a community, new concerns related to congestion, and to make sure that we're moving in the right direction related to our performance targets. So the reason why we do a congestion management process is because every MPO that has a population of 200,000 or more people is required to. However, federal guidance is not prescriptive about either what the approach to congestion management process should look like or how often you need to update your process. Here at Metro Plan Orlando, we do that update every 5 years, generally on the same schedule with our long range MTP planning. And we do that for two reasons. first so that those goals and objectives that are defined for the long-range planning efforts can help inform how we're thinking through our congestion management planning. And then also so that the strategies that are recommended as a part of the CMP can be considered for inclusion in the cost feasible plan that's part of the MTP. There is no requirement that those strategies are included in the MTP. However, it does offer us the opportunity to do so. As I noted, there is no prescriptive method for how you're supposed to update your CMP, but FHWA did provide some guidance in 2015, and we use that guidance here. So generally, our process looks like this. We define our congestion management goals and objectives. We then identify what our study area is. For us here at Metro Plan, it's the 3-county planning area. We identify what our performance metrics are going to be in the congestion management realm and identify what our targets are. And then we consider which strategies we think will get us to moving in the right direction towards those targets and identify a monitoring and evaluation plan for the process itself. So it sort of talks about what a CMP is and why we do it. The rest of the slides that I have for you are just going to do a brief snapshot of what was included in our 2045 update that we did a couple of years ago and how we're thinking about changing that with this 2050 update we're working on now. So similar to how we're approaching things this time, for the 2045 CMP goals, we really thought that the goals that were developed for the 2045 long range plan were strong and showed the priorities of the region. And so we carried those over to be our guiding principles for the CMP and just use the same goal areas to define our objectives and everything else that rolled out of the CMP. This slide shows sort of a sprinkling of the performance measures that are included in our 2045 CMP. As you can see, we identified some performance metrics for each of the 5 goal areas. And we tried to focus on measures that both impact congestion, things like how many crashes we're seeing on the system, how quickly we're clearing incidents, and then also on performance measures that are impacted by congestion, so things like delay and air quality. For the 2045 CMP, we had 3 broad buckets of strategies that we recommended. The first were strategies that improve safety, the idea being there that we could combat that non-recurring congestion with some of those strategies. The other 2 buckets focused on optimizing system capacity, and then also looking at how we could shift those single occupant vehicle trips to other modes, with the intent being that those 2 buckets of strategies could address both recurring and non-recurring congestion. So this slide sort of an update on everything that we're thinking through updating as a part of this 2050 CMP update. So I'll go through those in turn. As I mentioned, similar to what we did with the 2045 update, we again feel that the goals that have been identified and recently adopted for the 2050 MTP are strong. And so those are serving as our guiding principles as we develop our objectives for the CMP and our performance metrics and strategies. When we think about our performance measures, we have done a lot of data collection over the last few months to look at the performance measures that we had before, where we're trending, are we moving in the right direction towards the targets that we set. As we're thinking through what we want to do with the 2050 CMP, we're looking at potentially deleting a few of the performance measures that maybe are addressed with other PMs. We really want to refine what we're looking at for the CMP. There may be some additional performance measures that are added to make sure we're getting that holistic view of how the system is performing. And then for a couple of the measures, we're also looking at some new data sources, either because it's easier to get to the data or we think it's a little bit more accurate than what we were using before. Similar methodology for the strategies. We've gone through and looked at the strategies that were recommended in the 2045 CMP to see which ones were actually implemented and starting to do some evaluation on whether or not they're moving us towards our targets. And we'll be considering which ones will carry through to the 2050 CMP update, which ones we'll delete, and if we're going to add any new ones. And then another major element that we're updating this time is adding a CMP scorecard that's meant to be sort of a 1-pager that has maybe 5 to 8 of the measures, not all of the performance measures, but the ones that really give us a view of how we're doing in the congestion management space, something that we can include in your board and committee packets quarterly, and that would be available to the public as well. So as we think through what the next steps are, in a couple of weeks, we have a staff internal workshop to talk through our preliminary recommendations from the project team on the CMP objectives, performance measures, targets, and strategies. We'll be taking that input from staff and rolling it into some recommendations that I will be introducing at the August 8th MTP technical workshop. I hope to see everyone there. That will be a good opportunity for you to provide your input on what we're including in the CMP. And we'll take that input from that meeting and roll it into some draft documentation. And I anticipate I'll be back in the fall to actually roll out what our recommendations are for the CMP this time. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Laura. Do we have any questions? Or is that questions for Laura?
Hello,
Don't
Laura.
come in. Hi there.
Thank you for your presentation. In some of our discussions, we've talked about the connection between land use and safety, and definitely for congestion, especially that reoccurring congestion. How might the CMP address land use, given our agency's responsibilities versus Metro Plan's responsibilities with land use?
I really think of the CMP as a place to be sort of a storehouse for all the universe of strategies that we can think about. And so I think that's a great point, one that I have a whisper campaign going internally to think about how we can better talk about how transportation and land use link. And so we'll do some thinking about how that could be reflected in the CMP and then actually implement it. So I look forward to more input from that when we have our chat on the 8th.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you,
All right,
Laura.
thanks,
very much
everybody.
for your presentation. All right. And we'll moving on to general information. There are several items under general information in tab 5 of your agenda packets. Please review these items when possible. And then upcoming meetings of interest. Our next TAC meeting will be held in person on Friday, August 23rd. The next Metro Plan Orlando Board meeting will be held in person on Wednesday, July 10th. And please make note that it does begin at 8 o'clock. And the full list of upcoming meetings is in your agenda packets. At this time, do any committee members want to make any final comments? All right. Seeing no further member comments, we'll move on to public comments. If any member of the public wish to comment and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll send you a prompt to unmute your mic. After you're recognized, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comment to 2 minutes or less. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any hands raised on the virtual side.
Thank you, Lisa. And do we have any members of the public attending in person who wish to make a public comment?
Mr. Chair, we've received no comments.
Thank you, Rachel. And are there any written comments that were submitted before the meeting?
None received.
Easily. And if there are no further business, then we'll stand adjourned at, call it 10:53. Thank you.